Hi guys, in this video, I'm going to share with you 4 medication-free ways to cope with things like allergies, things like colds, or sinus infections during pregnancy. I'm Riva, and as a quick disclaimer, none of this should be taken as medical advice. You should definitely consult your physician, your midwife, your primary care provider for any kind of actual medical advice. These are just some tips for things that have worked for me, from my experience, but always know that your medical decisions should be handled with your medical care providers. That being said, let's jump right into it. So the first tip that I have for how to cope with things like allergies and sinus infections and colds is to use something like what I'm wearing here, which is a nasal strip. This is in particular the Breathe Right strip, and I really like the extra strength one. This particular one is like a really big box. We got it from Costco because I use them a lot and they work really well. So I just wanted a lot of them. But you can get a smaller pack of them from, any probably grocery store or pharmacy store. And basically they have lots of varieties. You can pick what works for you. They have ones that are for sensitive skin that are a little gentler. The extra strength is just like it grips onto your skin a little more firmly. And so if you have like oilier skin, or if you're just like, I want this to really open my sinuses and I want it to just like fully inflate. And I tried the other ones first, I tried the gentle ones. They just didn't work as well for me personally, but the extra strength ones just really open up the sinuses. So that's why I like them. And this is medication free. It's just a strip that sticks onto the outside of your nose. And what I really like is, you can just toss it, if you wear it at night, you can toss it the next day. They're these little packs where you'll get like a whole bunch of them, and then you just kind of tear one off and there's a brand new one that you can put on. So what I would recommend doing is just take a look to see the different varieties and see what might work best for your skin type. I think they even have like clear ones if you're worried about how it looks. I personally don't care. I typically would wear these just at nighttime, but if I'm really dealing with a bad amount of allergies, or if I'm actually dealing with a sinus infection, I might wear this during the daytime too if I don't have to go in to see people or to do things. And if I really wasn't feeling good, I just wouldn't care anyway. But I probably would take it off if I went into the office or went somewhere. But in general, once you put it on, personally, I don't really notice it. I just notice it in the very beginning, and then it's just like it's not even there. And I would recommend you kind of take your time when you're taking it off the first time. I'm pretty quick with it because I've been doing it for so long. But what I tend to do, this is just like my personal little secret to make it easier, is I keep a little bit of coconut oil in my bathroom. And when I go to take it off, sometimes I'll do it after a shower, or I'll rinse my face so it's a little bit moist. And then I'll take the coconut oil on my fingers and I'll kind of massage it underneath the flaps at the very edges, and I'll start to pick away at the strip to kind of pull it off, and I'll add a little bit more oil as I'm doing it so that it kind of makes the stickiness not work as well. And then as I kind of pull it off, then it's really easy to remove the whole strip with the sticky bits and not feel like your skin is raw or anything like that. If you do go ripping it off every single time, I wouldn't be surprised if your skin becomes a little sensitive. But I could wear these for like every single day for weeks or a month, and as long as I use that little trick with the coconut oil, I'm sure any oil would really work. So you could probably use olive oil or something else, anything to kind of just like help break down some of that sticky material that makes it a little easier to get it off. And that way you won't feel like I don't want to wear it every night or frequently, because you don't want to have that skin irritation. It's up to you though, so you can try different ways. Now, so I'm going to leave this on because it's actually helping me right now. And so I'm leading by example. The next thing that I have to show you are nose rinses. This particular one that I have is the Med Sinus Rinse. This also came from Costco. It's like a big box, and it had lots of packets, and it had like 2 bottles, so you can have a backup one or an extra one for later. I use this so much, that's why I got such a big one. You can totally get this again from your grocery store, from your pharmacy. Check, every place is a little different for what they stock. The one that I really like is the ones that are all natural. The only time this matters is with the actual salt packets that it comes with for the nasal rinse. So if it's me, I'm looking for that one that says all natural on it. I've tried a lot of different sinus rinses, sprays, things like that in my lifetime. And because I used to get chronic sinus infections when I was younger, not really since, but when I am, experiencing all these things, I've tried lots of options. And what I don't like about the ones that are not all natural is there's a different kind of smell and feeling, and I think there's some kind of a preservative that they put in the other packets that are not the all natural ones, and I personally don't feel like my body likes it very much, and so that's why I opt for the all natural ones, which is more just the salt itself. And then what I do is it comes with the instructions. So you add the salt packet to the bottle, you fill it to the fill line, and like it's really clear on the bottle so you can see it. You can use it with warm water that's been warmed up, or you can use it with room temperature water. I use it so much and so frequently that I just keep a bottle of distilled water in my bathroom, and then I just mix this up over the sink really carefully, and I just keep the bottle there because I use it so frequently. And then I'll usually just kind of shake it, swirl it, get the salt to dissolve in and be more evenly mixed. And then always go to the sink when you go to do this, because there's a lot of liquid that's going to go through. And just in case it comes out right away, you want to make sure you're over the sink, or maybe it comes back out the same side. With these, it's something where it's drawing the water up, so you just kind of lean forward, you stick it in the nostril, you squeeze it, and then the water flushes into one side, and you want it to come flushing out of the other side. If you have really clogged sinuses, though, sometimes I will find that it's just so squished in there that the water won't come out all the way, and sometimes it'll come out the same side. So what I do with that is I just take my time, and I might just hold the pressure there and go a little slower so that I'm releasing the water a little slower, so the airways have a little bit of a chance to start to open up and unclog. I'll do one side, I'll blow my nose, then I'll do the other side. Everyone has a different experience with this. In the very, very beginning, if you've never done a saltwater rinse before, it can feel like it's burning a little bit. But for me, I've been doing it for so long that it doesn't really affect me like that. It's just like a quick rinse. It feels really good. And it really does help to open up the sinuses and to dry the sinuses for if you have allergies, or if you have an actual sinus infection, if there's bacteria in there, then you want to be drying up the sinuses. If you're like a little on the extreme side, you can totally put 2 packets in and add the water. You can read the instructions, it'll tell you this. I don't regularly add the 2 packets. I would just add 1 to start, because I feel like it is very drying. And if you do this a lot with a lot of hyper salt solution, then you can start to have things more like nosebleeds and things like that. But this is if you're using it a lot with the extreme amount of salt frequently over a period of time. If you're just doing this once a day, I do this maybe anywhere from 3, I'll do it at least once a day, and then I might do it 3 to 5 times a day if I'm really not feeling good and there's maybe a lot of pollen in the air, or I just have a sinus infection and it's really bad. And for something like allergies or general rinsing, I won't put 2 packets in. That's just like if it's an extreme infection or something's just really not clearing. And in general, again, for me, I just put room temperature water in, but I think especially if you have very clogged sinuses, warming up the water first, either in the microwave or on the stove, that, or if you have like one of those any whatever way you use to warm up your water, having it not boiling. I mean, you can boil water, let it cool down first. If you're gonna use that, you don't have to use distilled, but I personally recommend it. I think it's better to just try not to introduce anything else that might be in the water and any other minerals or things that like could you just minimize what you're sticking in your nose if you're already not feeling good. That's what I'm thinking. So that's what I personally do with this guy. And you can totally do the same thing with like a neti pot or other ways. I just personally like the NeilMed. Oh, the reason I don't like the sprays as much, although if I'm traveling and I don't have easy access to a giant gallon of distilled water in my like salt packets and stuff, then I will use one of the sprays where it's like a saline spray rinse, just because it's already prepared, it's sterile, and if I'm on the go, then that's a nice easy way to do it. It don't feel like it gives you as strong of a stream. Like there's a significant difference. I used to just use the sprays, and then when I finally switched to using something like this, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I can clear my whole sinuses so much faster and so much more effectively. And I think I cut off a second ago with the warm water. The warm water might help open up the sinuses in a more gentle way. So if you're doing this for the first time, warm water probably will be very nice. It'll help be more effective at clearing the sinuses, allowing a gentle opening, and also just giving you physical comfort if you haven't done this before. Now, so that's all the nasal rinsing. Number 3 is going to be steams. So steaming is something you can do in so many different formats. I personally really like to use the Instant Pot, but you can totally just boil water on a stove in a pot. You can also, if you don't have that option, just take a cup or a bowl with some water in the microwave and heat it up in the microwave till it's nice and steamy. You can go jump in a nice shower, get some really good steam. But there are some things that I personally like to add to mine. Now, there's tons of options, but what I do is I usually add a few drops of peppermint essential oil. And this is just one that I use, but you don't have to use this particular one. There's tons of them. If you go to like any of the natural food stores, there's so many different kinds of oils there. So peppermint, and then there's this one called Olbas, which I think you can get at places like Sprouts or Whole Foods. And Olbas oil is a mix of a bunch of oils. And this one, it has peppermint, eucalyptus. So it actually has peppermint. I just like to add extra peppermint. You don't have to, number one, you don't have to add oils. You don't have to add peppermint on top of this. You can always try starting with Olbas, or you could sometimes I've just used peppermint. I only recently learned about Olbas, which has peppermint, eucalyptus, cajeput. I don't actually know how to pronounce that, but whatever that is. Juniper, wintergreen, and clove. So there's a lot of different mixes. It's a mix of oils that helps with breathing, improving the sinus passageways, opening up, and things like that. And it's something that, for me, again, I put maybe like a few drops, like I'd say 3 to 5 drops of the Olbas, and then maybe 2 or 3 drops of peppermint oil into the Instant Pot. I usually fill it up to like the fill line, and once it's already up to like steaming and everything, I'll add the oils once I open it up. So I don't add the oils first and then open it and use it, although you can. It's just I think it dissipates and breaks down during that time if you were to put it in before you heat it up. So I just wait for it to heat up, and then I put these oils in, and then I steam with it. But you can also put different amounts. So if you only have a little bowl with water, you might only put a few drops, like maybe 2 or 3 drops of one, and then like maybe 1 drop of peppermint oil, and that would be fine. I just experiment with it, see what feels good for you. I think sometimes we get a little too attached to like amounts. It's nice to know what to start with, but I'm saying 3 to 5. There might be a day that I put 7 drops or put 2 drops. Like It's about what feels good for you. And maybe for some people, they're more sensitive to it, so they might want to put less. In which case, just put maybe 1 or 2 drops of each of them and see how it goes. Just try a couple drops at a time and see as you breathe it in, is this too strong for me? You can always add more later. So there's no reason to just like put a bunch in and overdo it for yourself and be like, oh, I can't even use it. You can also use things like eucalyptus oil, other things. So this is just what I personally like to work with. And when I do this, what I typically do with the Instapot is I'll set it to steam for like 5 minutes. And once it gets up to pressure, and I'll remember to close the vent because you got to close the vent so it can get up to pressure. And what I'll do is once the timer starts for the actual steam to occur, then I will unvent it and I'll actually use the air that's being vented off for the first part of the steam treatment for myself. And I want you to be very careful with this. So I do this all on the ground. I'll have the pot on the ground and then I'm letting it steam, making sure there's nothing around it that's going to get in the way. And then I start up higher. So where if the steam's coming all the way up to here, I start, feeling with my hands. I don't just shove my face in it because it's steam. So, for safety reasons, be careful. Disclaimer in general, be careful when working with steam. But I start really high up and usually the air is very cool and I'll kind of come down into the mist of the steam that's coming out of it. And when I'm in a nice, safe temperature for me with my hands, then I'll maybe start to put my face above it and I'll breathe that steam in. When that goes down and then that lets me open it, then I'll take the whole lid off carefully. It's hot. You just steamed water in there, so be very careful. And keep in mind if you have pets or little kids around. So if you feel like it's unsafe to put this on the ground, then don't put it on the ground. Do this on a table or somewhere up high or on a countertop where it's safe to do this. But again, I'll explain why it's on the ground in a second because it'll make more sense. So I'll do all of this on the ground. I'll open it up. And then when I open it up, I add my essential oils to the water that's already it's going to be kind of boily, very hot, very steamy. And immediately you can do 1 of 2 things depending on how comfortable you are with this. You can just kind of go above it. Again, start high where the air temperature is much cooler and then start to go lower. Don't stick your face in the pot because it's really hot. So also don't touch it, it's hot. But if you start up higher, you'll find an area that's kind of got a little bit more cooler air, and then you can bring yourself down to a level that feels safe and comfortable for you. And then you just breathe in the steam and just breathe in and out right above the steam. When I'm doing this, what I like to do is I'll grab a towel and I'll just put the towel over my head and the Instant Pot, and then I'll just breathe in and I'll let the steam kind of really build it up, and it really starts to become a whole steamy area. My face will get really moist and my it's very steamy, but it works super well for helping to open up the sinuses if you're doing it with the towel, I think. But in the beginning, when I wasn't really as comfortable with it, sometimes some people might feel like it's just too much steam if you're under the towel. So in the beginning, it's fine to just keep the towel aside and just breathe in the steaming air from above it with an open space. And if you feel claustrophobic with the towel and all those things, there's nothing wrong with just keeping it open. I just think the steam lasts more and builds up more with using the towel. And one more, kind of a little bonus thing to go with it. I mentioned the Olbas oil. So Olbas also, I learned, makes an inhaler. I found this actually at Whole Foods. And, if Whole Foods or Olbas wants to sponsor me, I'm always open for that. But this is just a little inhaler where you unscrew it, you put it in one nostril, you breathe it in, and then you put it in the other nostril and you breathe it in. You can do this a couple times on each side, and it's just another way of administering that Olbas oils directly to the sinuses to help open up the nasal passageways. I would say this isn't going to work by itself, especially if you have a really clogged sinuses cavity on both sides or one side. You might be so, so stuffy that you can't even inhale in to that side of the nose, and you're like, well, how does that help me? It won't necessarily in the beginning. I like to use all of these things I'm sharing with you in combination with each other. Like, that's what really helps me, is to do all of the things, and that then it really helps me feel better. It helps open up my sinuses. So this might be something you do at the end after you've done the nasal rinses and done a steam, and then you can finally actually get the sinus to allow you to breathe into it. And it's a nice like addition to everything else. And it's not necessary, but it's just a nice other little tool for helping with congestion or anything like that. So we talked about, so I wanted to go into a little bit more about the steam though. So why I mentioned having it on the ground. So you guys know I'm a yoga instructor and a breathing instructor. If you didn't know, hey, guess what? That's what I do also, outside of my other stuff that I do. And I wanted to share just a little bit about how you can use some movement with the steam to really make a difference. I personally do not find just steaming alone is necessarily going to do it for me. Personally, everyone's different. I feel like using breathing and movement practices with the steam are really beneficial. So what this looks like is I will go onto all fours, and I'll do some cat. So I'll have like the Instant Pot, in front of me very carefully because it's hot. But while I'm doing the steam, I might do some cat cows where it's cow, you inhale to cow and you kind of dip down and then exhale to cat. Think like the little Halloween cat. Inhale to cow, exhale to cat. So I'll be sitting here doing the steam, inhaling the essential oil water, and just continuing to move my body. And it's not just about dipping your chest down, it's about your whole body. And I genuinely believe that this movement is really beneficial for helping to open up the full respiratory system. It's really good for helping to open up some of the tighter muscles in the upper body, especially if you've been coughing a lot, because these can get really tight, can even be sore. And if they're really tight, it's already going to be harder for you to breathe. So when I do this, I also will do some hip circles and kind of allow my body to just take some natural movement, whatever feels good for me. And I'll be breathing in the essential oil vapors and the steam the whole time. And I might just go from side to side, just kind of lean into one hip, lean into the other hip, and allow my body to just take some nice natural movement while I'm breathing in that steam. And that significantly helps to open up not just the sinuses, but also the lungs and the muscles that contribute to the more optimal breathing for, to help you get better faster. And then on top of that, that's all about the steaming and the movement that I would recommend for the steaming. And on top of that, what I'll talk about is number 4, which is humming. Now, hear me out. Humming is incredibly beneficial for things like allergies, sinusitis, any kind of congestion, for any kind of cold, flu, or other sinus infections, whatever it might be. Humming is helpful because, and I'm going to give you some of the scientific basis for why. Humming will trigger, and the recommendation is about 5 minutes of humming at a time, at least once a day. But personally, I would recommend doing it a few times a day, like 3 to 5 times a day, for about 5-minute periods of time, if you can. But if you could just do it once a day, even if it's for like a minute, you'll still get some benefit from this. So like, you don't have to do 5 minutes of humming 5 times a day. You can just do 30 seconds to a minute of humming in the morning.
And then do it as it feels good to do throughout the day if you feel like it, but don't do it if you don't want to do it. I personally find it beneficial, which is why I do it more. But here's the thing. When you hum for 5 minutes, there is a nitric oxide release, maximal nitric oxide release from your nasal passageways. Nitric oxide is a natural antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial agent. And so it will actually help you to fight off an infection and prevent and all of the different things. It also opens up the sinuses, and it also is a bronchodilator. So when you're humming, the nitric oxide that's released into the nasal passageways will also go into your lungs. And when it goes into your lungs, it acts as a bronchodilator. And what that means is it opens up those little branches and parts of the lungs that are going to allow you to more optimally allow for oxygen and CO2 exchange to occur. So what nitric oxide does is it not only benefits you by helping you fight off the infection, but it also helps you to more optimally use the lungs that are there so that you can breathe, keep your oxygen levels at a happy, healthy place, and give you a better capacity. And what I love to do is I love to do my 5 minutes of humming while I'm doing a steam. So it looks hilarious. I can only imagine if you were to see me doing this in real life, but I will have my Instant Pot right there on the floor with me while I'm doing cat cows and moving my body and humming for 5 minutes. And humming, this is a quick note because some people have done humming wrong. So humming is actually what you're supposed to do is you go, I want you to do a quick test to make sure you're good with your humming. So you go, right? It's like humming. But here's a test to make sure you're doing it right. If you go, and you go to plug your nose, and sound is still coming out of you when you plug your nose, you are humming wrong. Your mouth is open. You need to close your mouth. So make sure that when you're humming, if you want to test it to make sure you're doing it right, you go, and as soon as you plug that nose, you better stop hearing sounds. And that's how you know you're humming correctly, because the vibrations, you want the vibrations to stay in your mouth. If you keep your mouth open, the vibrations are leaving, but we want to super stimulate the air passageways in order to get that nitric oxide release and build up in concentration. So that's why it's important to hum with your mouth closed. And the again, optimal time frame of humming is 5 minutes. Now, why do I tell you to do it throughout the day? I mean, you could sit there and hum for a half an hour if you wanted to, if it made you feel good. But the reason so it's not bad to do it more. It's just with about 5 minutes, you get most optimal release. What's happening is cells in your nasal passageway already hold nitric oxide. They've built up these stores of nitric oxide. When you hum, you ask the cells to release the nitric oxide into the passageway. So now they've lost all their nitric oxide, but don't worry, they keep making more, but it takes time for it to build up. So it's not like you're necessarily getting a ton more nitric oxide immediately if you keep humming for a half an hour, but you will get a full release of whatever nitric oxide is available in about 5 minutes, or an optimal amount released. And then you give your body some time to build the nitric oxide. And it's not bad. Like if 2 hours later, you're like, I'm going to hum again, you'll still get some more nitric oxide release. It's just, I usually do it maybe 3 times a day, maybe 5 times a day. If I'm doing it with steams, you can do it with or without steam. You don't have to steam while you're humming. But I do feel like if I'm humming while moving my body and doing a steam, then that is what really super impacts me in a really good way and helps me to cope with things like allergies or sinus infections or things like that. So I think I've given you guys a lot of tools and things to think about, things to try. I mean, the humming's great because you don't need to go out and buy anything. You can just start humming literally right now. And I just set a timer usually just to remind myself. But we have 4 wonderful tips for you. The first one being, you can totally use a Breathe Right strip like I have on right now. You can choose to do nasal rinses with this or any other nasal rinse tool. You can choose to do steams with or without essential oils. They're not necessary. And just because I'm saying Olbas oil, if you can't find Olbas oil, you can totally, I'm going to say the ingredients one more time in case you're just curious. It's got peppermint, eucalyptus, cajeput, juniper, wintergreen, and clove. But again, you could even, if you could just find peppermint, that's really great. Eucalyptus, any of the oils that I said were in this one, you can get them individually and maybe pick the ones you like. I want you to keep in mind safety of you, kids, pets. So consider what's in these. Make sure you're not allergic to anything. Make sure that if you put it on the floor and it's something that's not safe for animals, that you don't leave it out and accessible to animals. Or if you're worried about your animals getting burnt on it, then really put that on a counter or something. Just safety thoughts. You get the little bonus tip, the little Olbas inhaler, and then humming. So you have 4 great ways to work with being able to cope with whatever allergies or sinus infections or things you've got going on. And I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, please feel free to put something in the comments. And I hope you guys enjoy. Take care. As always, the light in me sees and honors the light in each and every one of you. Bye-bye.